dead of night, at precisely 3:33 a.m., a sudden blackout plunged the warehouse into darkness. The outage lasted only 3 seconds, but it was long enough to spark a sense of unease. It was during this brief interval that something inexplicable occurred. A presence stirred, moving unseen within the shadows. The movement wasn't caused by the usual warehouse activity. No boxes were knocked over, and no machines whirred to life. It was something else entirely, something that didn't belong. This incident marked the beginning of a night shift that would stretch on forever, a perpetual vigil of fear and uncertainty. Welcome back to 9 Lives of Fear.
The sound wasn't a scream, but a rhythmic, metallic thud-hiss that sent shivers down my spine. The unmistakable hum of a hydraulic press, eerily echoing through a deserted warehouse. It was as if a mechanical heartbeat pulsed through the empty space, its rusty iron rhythm fueled by oil. For 7 years, darkness has shrouded my world, a bleak landscape of late-night gas station shifts where desperation hung in the air like a palpable mist, and the sterile halls of hospital morgues seemed to reverberate with an unsettling quiet. Yet, in this somber rhythm, I've discovered a strange solace. The stillness of the night has become my companion, a time for unvarnished introspection. When the world slumbers, I'm left to confront my thoughts, unencumbered by the distractions of daylight. There's a peculiar honesty to these nocturnal hours, a sense of raw vulnerability that fosters a deeper connection with my own mind.
Something didn't add up about the Ridgeway Distribution Center. The opportunity arrived through a secure recruiting app with no company name or interview process. The job title was Industrial Systems Monitor, with a midnight to 7 a.m. shift and a salary triple the industry standard. A key card and set of coordinates accompanied the offer in my post office box. Most would have taken that as a red flag and backed out. Not me. As I pulled into the gravel lot, a foreboding structure rose from the Oregon mist, its concrete facade seeming to absorb the surroundings. The building's imposing presence was accentuated by the absence of windows and signs, leaving only steel walls that vanished into darkness. A solitary, heavy door stood guard at the entrance, exuding an air of ruggedness.
"Welcome to the grind," I said to myself, a hint of trepidation in my voice. I swiped my keycard, and the reader emitted a faint purple glow. The lock disengaged with a sudden jarring crack, reminiscent of a bone snapping. The initial hours dragged by with an air of tedious normalcy. My routine was mundane: patrol the perimeter, check the pressure gauges, and meticulously log any irregularities in a worn leather-bound ledger at the central workstation. The warehouse stretched out before me like a labyrinth, its vast expanse dominated by a network of conveyor belts, towering shelves stacked with thousands of unmarked brown boxes. The labels on these boxes featured strange, jagged symbols that seemed to writhe and twist if I gazed at them for too long, defying recognition.
As the clock struck 2 a.m., the lighting in the warehouse began to malfunction. It wasn't a simple flicker. Instead, the lights pulsed with an ominous rhythm, cycling through shades of dimness and brightness. Every few minutes, the warehouse would plunge into total darkness, only to flicker back to life after exactly 3 seconds. It was during these brief, inky blackouts that I first became aware of the sound. At first, it wasn't voices. It was more akin to the rustling of dry leaves across a concrete floor. I attempted to rationalize the noise, telling myself it was just the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning HVAC system. "Vents," I muttered, trying to reassure myself. But deep down, I knew it didn't sound like the gentle hum of vents. As I ventured into Sector 4, my destination was the cooling towers. The gauges displayed normal readings, with pressure steady and stable. However, as I turned to exit, something peculiar caught my attention. A small, circular window on one of the tanks seemed out of place. I lifted my flashlight and shone it inside, curiosity getting the better of me. What I saw was unexpected. No coolant, no machinery, just a sea of old analog watches suspended in a thick, clear gel. The eerie part was that every single watch had its hands ripped off, leaving them frozen in time. A chill ran up the back of my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. I quickly grabbed my radio, hoping to call for assistance. "This is Marcus in Sector 4, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're experiencing a mechanical issue at the cooling station." The only response was static. But then, a voice crackled through the radio. It was my own voice, distorted and eerie. "Is Marcus, Sector 4, help, it's not morning yet." I dropped the radio, and it landed hard on the floor, the casing cracking on impact. But the radio didn't fall silent. Instead, it continued to play my voice, repeating the same words over and over, faster and faster, with a rising pitch. The sound was like something panicking, something trapped. That was when I'd had enough. No amount of triple pay was worth this. As I turned toward the exit, a sense of disorientation washed over me. The sector numbers blurred together. Sector 4, Sector 3, Sector 2, but my gaze never reached Sector 1. The warehouse seemed to stretch on indefinitely, its vastness overwhelming. The conveyor belts, once dormant, now hummed to life with an eerie energy. But they weren't transporting boxes. Instead, they were carrying something far more peculiar. Shoes. Thousands of them, empty and mismatched, moved slowly forward in a solemn procession, like a funeral march. It was then that I caught sight of something that made my heart skip a beat. As I stood at the end of the aisle, a towering figure emerged from the shadows. Its excessive height and unsettling thinness made it appear almost inhuman. What made it even more unnerving was that it wore a security uniform identical to mine, blending in with an air of eerie familiarity. I attempted to break the silence, calling out, "Hey, the exit's locked! I need an override!" But my voice was met with an unsettling silence. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it tilted its head in an unnatural motion. The tilting continued, incrementally increasing in degree, until I heard a sickening, wet crack. Its head hung limply, upside down against its back, in a pose that was both disturbing and fascinating. The most shocking revelation, however, was the absence of a face. In its place was a large brass clock embedded in its flesh, its hands spinning wildly in reverse. The surreal scene sent a chill down my spine, leaving me questioning my own sanity. I sprinted through the darkness, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As I reached the ladder, I hauled myself up to the catwalks, my lungs searing with effort. The warehouse below me was in constant motion, its layout morphing like a living entity. Shelves slid into place, rearranging themselves with eerie precision, as if fitting together the pieces of a colossal puzzle. The entire space twisted and contorted, folding in on itself with disorienting speed. I clutched my phone, hoping for a signal, but it remained stubbornly blank. Undeterred, I dialed 911, the numbers echoing through the stillness. The screen glowed with an otherworldly light, displaying the time, 03:33 a.m. I watched transfixed as the seconds ticked by. 34, 35, 59. But the minute remained frozen, stuck at 03:33 a.m. I stumbled upon a terminal on the catwalk and frantically slammed my fingers across the keyboard, desperate to send any kind of message, an email, a text, anything. The screen flickered to life, casting an eerie glow over the dimly lit area. But to my surprise, it wasn't a desktop interface that stared back at me. Instead, I was met with a live feed of my apartment, the familiar surroundings now taking on a sinister tone. On the screen, I saw myself fast asleep in bed, completely unaware of the unfolding scene. Then the door creaked open, and a figure with a clock face stepped inside, its presence seeming to draw the very air out of the room. It loomed over my sleeping form, its hand reaching out to rest on my forehead. As if on cue, my eyes snapped open on the screen, and I found myself staring directly into the camera. But I didn't let out a scream. Instead, I simply mouthed 3 chilling words: still on shift. A darkness shattered within me, unleashing a primal urge to escape. I sprinted, devoid of direction, my feet pounding the ground in a frantic bid for freedom. My cries for help echoed through the desolate space, pleading for Mr. Bennett or anyone to intervene.
The shadows on the walls began to stir, their movements unsettling and unnatural. They didn't merely shift or writhe. They seemed to flow like a viscous liquid, forming thick black pools that crept up the walls with an otherworldly slowness. Somehow, I found myself back at the central desk, though I have no recollection of how I got there. The ledger lay open before me, its pages fluttering in the silence. My gaze fell upon the most recent entry, penned in my own handwriting. The ink was still wet, a stark reminder of the immediacy of the moment. The date, however, made my heart skip a beat. It was 3 years into the future. The entry read, "Shift 1095. Marcus is still searching for the door. He's unaware that the door is nothing more than a memory."
As I grasped the wrench tightly, a surge of determination coursed through me. "I'm making my escape!" I yelled, my voice echoing off the walls. The building seemed to respond, its ominous presence closing in around me. The thud-hiss grew louder, a menacing sound that sent shivers down my spine. The floor lurched, throwing me off balance. I slid across the cold, hard concrete, my heart racing as I careened toward the compactor in Sector 4. The air was heavy with the acrid smell of ozone and decay, a noxious odor that made my stomach churn. I scrambled to my feet, my senses on high alert. And that's when I saw it. Standing right in front of me, its presence seemed almost palpable. The sound of gears grinding inside its chest was like music to my fear-stricken brain. It reached out a cold metallic hand and touched my temple, sending a chill down my spine. Everything went white, like a blinding flash of light. I felt like I was being pulled apart, stretched to my limits, and then rewound like a spool of thread. Memories flashed before my eyes in reverse, a dizzying whirlwind of recollections. Childhood memories, my first job, and the keycard all swirled together in a jumbled mess. I saw myself walking backward out of the warehouse, the scene unfolding in reverse. The sun rose in the west, casting an otherworldly glow. Clocks spun backward, their hands blurring into a golden haze. Then, everything went silent. When I came to, I was disoriented and groggy, but I found myself back in my car. The engine was running, and the heater hummed softly, a gentle warmth that enveloped me like a cocoon. The fog swirled against the windshield, casting an eerie veil over the deserted surroundings. Glancing at the clock, I noted the time, 10:55 p.m. A shiver ran down my spine as I whispered, "A dream." Just a dream, I reassured myself. My gaze drifted back to the warehouse, its imposing structure still standing sentinel in the darkness. The silence was oppressive, and a pang of unease urged me to leave, to drive away into the night. But my feet seemed rooted to the spot. The sudden buzz of my phone shattered the stillness. A message from an unknown number flickered on the screen. "Mr. Bennett, you're 5 minutes early, Marcus. Consistency is key to a long career. See you inside." As I stood there, my hands trembled uncontrollably, betraying my fear. That's when I noticed the grease stains under my fingernails, a tangible reminder of the events that had transpired. The pungent smell of ozone still lingered on my skin, an electric reminder of the charged atmosphere. My gaze drifted to my wrist, where a faint red bruise had formed, a perfect circle with 12 distinct marks. I attempted to start the car, but it refused to budge. The engine continued to hum,
its incessant noise a stark contrast to the silence that seemed to be building around me. The doors unlocked by themselves, a soft click that sent a shiver down my spine. Across the parking lot, the warehouse door creaked open, its slow movement like an ominous invitation. The darkness within seemed to pulse, as if waiting for me.
Despite my reservations, my body seemed to move of its own accord. I stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching beneath my boots like a death knell. As I approached the entrance, I cast a final glance back at the car. The moon above flickered, its dim light dancing across the scene like a macabre waltz. Bright, dim, dark, and back again. With a sense of foreboding, I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me, its metallic sound echoing through the space like a heartbeat, steady, relentless, and unending.
As I approached the desk, a sense of anticipation settled in. I reached for the pen, feeling its weight in my hand, and opened the ledger, its pages whispering secrets of the past. The clock on the wall glared at me, its cold, digital eyes reading 11 p.m. The second hand ticked away with monotonous regularity, then jerked backward, as if hesitant to surrender the moment. 11 p.m., the threshold to a night that seemed to stretch on forever. I lifted the radio to my lips, my voice firm as I announced, "This is Marcus, reporting for my first shift from deep within Sector 4. A chill ran down my spine as I heard my own voice, laced with desperation, screaming for help from a tomorrow that would never arrive. I grasped my flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, and began my rounds. The promise of triple the market rate had lured me to this nocturnal world, where time lost all meaning. On this endless night shift, I had all the time in the world to spend and confront the secrets that lurked within.
The notion that time heals all wounds is a common one. However, what if time has a different effect? What if it traps you rather than sets you free? Marcus thought he was accepting a simple job offer, another night shift at a quiet workplace. But some places don't exist to be worked in. They exist to hold you captive. Imagine a warehouse with no windows, no exit, and no morning. The only sounds are the hum of machines and a countdown. Or is it a countdown? The worst part? Marcus managed to escape, waking up to a second chance. However, his job was still waiting for him. This raises a haunting question. What if stepping into certain places binds you to a schedule? Are you truly off the clock, or just between shifts? As you check the time tonight, when the clock strikes 3:33, and an unsettling quiet falls over the world, ask yourself, are you truly free, or is your time already spoken for? Is your name on the schedule, waiting for the next shift to begin? Mast lightly, for somewhere a door is creaking open, and your turn might be next. This concludes 9 Lives of Fear, and your shift could be just around the corner. You've survived another tale from 9 Lives of Fear. But don't get comfortable. If the shadows whispered to you tonight, hit like before they whisper again. Share this video with someone who thinks they're brave. Let's see how long their courage lasts. And subscribe, because around here, every click feeds the darkness, and the darkness remembers. Where the shadows linger long after the story ends. Stay scared.
Still on shift. Still on shift. Still on shift.